You are listening to Massage and Fitness Media, Episode 3. Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, 12:09 p.m. Pacific Time in San Diego, California. I am your host, Nicolás Ng, and I hope everybody who is listening is staying home. If you do need to go out, avoid crowds if possible. And if you do go to crowded places, go only because you absolutely have to, like grocery shopping. Last Sunday in San Diego, we have 32 cases of the coronavirus, and on Tuesday, yesterday, that number almost doubled, up to 60, according to Voices of San Diego. I haven't read anything about any updates today, and chances are the number will continue to go up in San Diego County. Meanwhile, I am making soup similar to caldo, which is a type of Mexican broth, and it has tomatoes, carrots, potatoes, onions, and pork shoulders, sprinkled with black pepper, salt, and oregano. Cornbread will have to wait because I don't have baking powder and other ingredients to make it. Anywho, we have a guest today who will be discussing about how we communicate to those who disagree with us online.
My name is Robert John Haddow. I'm a registered massage therapist and a sports injury therapist from Ontario, Canada. I've been practicing for a little over a decade. I've been studying the material for about 15 years.
Last month, Rob and his partner Marcy and I were talking about this topic at a taco shop in San Diego. And it reminds me a lot about the podcast series by David McRaney of You Are Not So Smart. They published this about a few years ago. They had several episodes on changing minds and why many people are resistant to changing their mind in spite of good evidence that contradicts what they believe. So how do we communicate with that population without forcing them to dig their heels in on their existing beliefs?
Well, I'm literally just sitting here playing with my cat while we talk, so I think that's pretty informal.
Hey, so Rob, so basically we have talked about, when we were at the San Diego Pain Summit last month, we talked about how people who disagree online tend to bicker back and forth like a bad ping pong game. And you mentioned about some things about how we should, how we should communicate better for those who disagree with it. So can you elaborate a little bit about give an example of like how we should not communicate versus how we should?
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, this is sometimes do as I say, not as I do, because I screw this up too. But consider if you're teaching, I don't know, chemistry to someone who's never taken a chemistry course.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't start with saying, okay, I'm going to list this element by the element name and just call it a day. And you expect that you know everything about it. You're going to start with, okay, let's walk you through what the elements are and let's go through the periodic table and teach you some basics. You always want to speak to your audience. You always want to speak to whoever you're speaking to with a goal in mind. And when we're talking online with people, we're not just arguing for the sake of arguing. I mean, I'm not. I hope other people aren't. We're trying to accomplish something. We're trying to communicate an idea, or we're trying to communicate a theory. We're trying to correct an error. And you need to talk to that person in such a way that you want the response you're aiming for, not in such a way that you're right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. In fact, it reminds, yeah. In fact, I was going to mention earlier that there was also a podcast spot from a few years ago that talked about how to change minds, and the strategies in doing so is similar to what you presented last month when we first spoke, and what you just said pretty much, was in alignment with what they were saying. And I'll put that on the show notes on the bottom of the website, on the page, to in case anyone wants to listen to how to change your mind. It comes in 3 different parts, very comprehensive. And so can you give an example? Let's role play here, Rob. So let's go ahead and let's say we disagree on something. I don't know, pineapple pizza is horrible versus pineapple pizza is the bomb. You know
Okay,
which
I like
you know
that
which
one.
side I'm in. You know which side I'm on.
I'm on the same side as you, so this will be a weird one. But yeah, you got it. Go for it.
Okay. Hey Rob, pineapple on
Yeah.
pizza is a horrible idea. I don't know which
Okay.
Canadian invented it back when I was a kid. But I think I think it's a horrible idea, just like a lot of stuff that we hear about in manual therapy that's horrible.
Okay. So, I mean, first off, I can see where you're coming from. I can appreciate your point on that, and I mean that's the opinion that a lot of people share. But I don't necessarily share that opinion. And here are some other considerations that I've had to take into account. Now, you're coming from this angle with a very subjective opinion. I get that. I value
Hmm.
that.
Oh yeah.
But have you considered that maybe for some people, that salty and sweet taste can irritate their taste buds, or maybe some people have sensitivity to bromine, and so as a result, pineapple can actually be painful for them. So for
Hmm.
them, it is indeed not the bomb.
Okay. Now give us an example of how not to do it.
You're wrong. End of story. I mean, that's the thing. When we talk to people online, we're not talking to scientists, we're not talking to scholars, we're not talking to university students even. We're talking to people. We're talking to lay people. We're talking to moms and dads who are coming home at the end of a long day. We're talking to students who are in school or just graduated from school and have been fed the dogma and have been told you are the knowledgeable healthcare practitioner. Doctors don't know because we have ancient wisdom on our side. Things like that. They've been indoctrinated. Maybe you're dealing with people who are dealing with a ton of life stress. They're not there to learn. They're there to unwind. They're not there to hear that they're wrong. They're there to be validated. And so when we talk to them, we try to teach them something, or we're trying to point out a different point of view. We can't start by saying you're wrong because that's not what they're there to hear, and that's not something they're ready to hear. If I'm dealing with a university student who's screwed up on an exam, if I'm doing a biomechanics lecture and someone says this moment arm applies more torque than this moment arm, I can say you're wrong. Here's the math. And that's really obvious. That's objective as hell, and that's done. And they are ready to hear that they're wrong the majority of the time because they're there to learn. People online aren't ready to hear that they're wrong, so you can't just start and say you're wrong. You actually have to come to where they're coming from. We're
Hmm.
talking to humans experiencing all the stress and all the crap of a daily human life, and they're there in their off time. It's not about professional development. It's about I was looking at videos of cats, and someone made this statement about cupping. Boom, triggered. And
Okay.
now you have to deal with a triggered person who doesn't want to think logically, who's not even consciously aware of whether or not they're thinking logically, who is just watching a cat chase a piece of toilet paper around at an extreme premium price. And now you're telling them they're wrong on something. And so we have to ask ourselves, where are they coming from? And what we've run into now is already, actually, you and I mentioned this when we were sitting down for, oh yeah, those tacos, those are good tacos. So we were sitting down
Yeah.
for tacos. We were talking about, we were talking about bifurcation in the field. We were talking about the idea of the sciencey people and the not sciencey people, and now we've seen someone try to capitalize on that, and he's trying to make money based on that schism, and he will make a lot of money by capitalizing on people's emotion rather than their rational brain.
Okay.
And it's not going to do any favors to the field or to the optics of our field. It's not going to do any favors to how we're interpreted by other healthcare professionals. It's not going to do any favors to how we're interpreted by the public if they are thinking critically. It'll do a lot of favors to his wallet, though.
Hmm.
and
Interesting. Yeah, I do recall that conversation we had, and ever since then, in the past in the past 4 weeks since we last talked, it's been kind of in the back of my head whenever I go online and communicate with people. And every time and you have no idea how many times I type for like 2 minutes straight, and then I control A and backspace
You still
everything.
need it.
I still do it, yeah.
Control A was a hot key for that. Oh crap! I
I
just
did.
pulled back.
No, dude, it's back. Well, I'm on my laptop anyway most of the time because its typing is faster than having my big ass thumbs on my smartphone. Um,
Yeah.
and my thoughts flow easier when I type, the old-fashioned way rather than on the phone. So
Yeah.
so anyway, so that's how I've been engaging. In fact, my engagement is almost non-existent to people on forums. I just kind of let people play it out, and that's about it so far.
Oh,
Let's see here. Well, that's a good idea, Rob. I mean, it is something that, like, critical thinking, that we do need to practice on how we communicate to whom. The way I communicate with our colleagues, like Ken Leung and you, and who else is there? Who's pretty and Raven Zara, and even Shauna Prasad. I mean, sure, I can be more objective with them, because that's how they communicate. For people who are not able to, who do not communicate that way, so we do have to adapt to a different audience.
well, the thing is, we're going to them with a goal in mind. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to them with the idea of, I'd like to teach you something, or I'd like to challenge your opinion, or I'd like to engage you in discussion. And so going to someone with a right hook when you just want to have a light sparring session is a little bit of overkill. Going to someone when you say, I just want to have a friendly chat, and starting by saying, you're an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
is not the way to do it. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
saying that everyone's saying you're an idiot, but example, you are an objectively more informed person than I am with regards to the evidence on pain science, on manual therapy, on the history of our field. I'm quite comfortable admitting that. If you come to me and say, Rob, you're wrong, and here's why, there's a hierarchy in my brain that says, yo, shut your pie hole, listen to Nick. He knows what he's talking about. My brain says, okay, shut up and listen. And I'm just like, okay, I'm wrong. And there's a part of me that says, it sucks to hear that. But I know that Nick researches a lot more than I do. I know that he does a lot more reading off to the side than I do. I know there's a lot more time spent before he types, thinking what he's going to type, than maybe I just did.
You have no idea. You have no idea how much I'm eye rolling right now.
Yeah. Well, I know that
I'm just playing
you
around,
read
man.
a lot more articles than I do. You digest a lot more info than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take another step. Let's go with someone like Lars. Lars is
Lars.
essentially the embodiment of of childlike glee at objective information. You want to make Lars happy? Ask him about it. Ask him about just science and evidence, and he's just a child in a candy shop. He's just happy with that stuff. If he's
Mm-hmm.
wrong and he finds
He
he's
is.
wrong, he's happy to have found out he's wrong. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, I learned things, and he's all giddy about it. He's like a giant kid. It's amazing. Did not
He is a
expect it.
giant kid. Have you seen his face when he ate that In-N-Out burger?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous, right?
it's just like that. You put the same. He would have the same reaction, that smile and a thumbs up, if you put like a pile of PubMed papers, like just a bunch of research papers in front of him.
Exactly. And so for him, if someone says you're wrong and here's the evidence, he doesn't fight that. If the evidence is saying that, he's just like, wow, thank you. That's evidence I didn't know. And I'm like, God, I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited. Most people aren't like Lars. That's why Lars stands out so much.
Mm-hmm.
Lars is an extreme outlier on the right side of the evidence equation. And he's very much, I want the stats, I want the details, I want the methodology, I want the p value, I want the n value, I want everything.
Mm-hmm.
Most people fall into the middle of that curve, but then we start getting into our field, which has a disproportionate representation of people who are a lot more left-leaning with regard to evidence. There's a lot more spirituality, a lot more engagement of what we consider to be pseudoscientific belief, a lot more
Mm-hmm.
gut feeling, a lot more I just know, a lot more it's just my intuition, etc.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to talk to someone who's so far removed from your own mindset, you can't come to them with your mindset and expect them to change. You're already asking a lot of them. You're engaging them on what you want to address. And some of us will say, well, I'm actually not arguing with this person for this person. I'm arguing for everyone else who might read it. Well, fine. Discuss, don't argue. Try your best. And I know right now by saying that, a lot of the evidence-based people who listen to this are going to probably want to lynch mob me, because this is a thing that comes up a lot, and we get, like, I have been criticized for this in the past too, and it's frustrating to hear it as someone who's just trying to communicate the evidence and trying to say, here's an objective thing, and this isn't about me or you, it's just about what's been tested and determined. But at the same time, we still have to take into account we are dealing with humans. We are dealing with human egos. We are dealing with human insecurity. We are dealing with human stress and stress response.
That makes a lot of sense, Rob. In fact, someone, in case for some of you don't know, I actually was a personal trainer for about 14 years, and 12 of those years were bundled with a lot of outdated ideas about biomechanics and human physiology. And I held on to that for 12 years until somebody came along toward the last part of the 12 years and told me that I'm wrong on social media. And I resisted for like months. I kicked and screamed. I kicked and screamed for months. But then again, it took some self-realization. I mean, this kind of stuff really, you can't change people's minds from the outside. They have to change from within, from what I understand. And it took me an additional 4 or 5 months to read some of the papers that contradicted my beliefs, and some of the books that looked at human delusion, how we lie and delude ourselves. And I was like, oh my gosh! So by around early 2013, that was when I started to cross that chasm, as Jason Silvernail says.
I always hate that term.
You hate that term?
I despise that term so much.
Did you like? I'm sorry, you got cut out for a second. Did you say you like it or don't like it?
Oh, I despise it.
Oh, can you tell us why?
Oh God. Okay. Trying to think back to some of the conversations I had about that recently, because one of them I actually managed to explain this really well, and the person I was talking to was like, "Wow, that's really reasonable." And now I'm like, "Okay, don't come across like the north end of a fifth-bound horse." Okay, we can look back at something like crossing the chasm, and we can say, "Yeah, it was a monumental change for me," but it also makes it, in my mind, pretty inapproachable for a lot of people. It sounds like this huge, big deal. And it's really not that big a deal to admit you're wrong. It's really not that big a deal to say, okay, there's more I have to learn. And it's not a matter of, okay, I was here, I've crossed the chasm, and now I'm here, and I did this huge thing. It's just a matter of, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. It doesn't have to be, I devoured the elephant. You look back, you're like, I ate an elephant. People are like, oh my God, I ate an elephant. That's so much food. No, you ate it over the course of a year. That's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
in this case, it's the same idea.
So from what I'm listening here, it sounds like you're trying to say crossing the chasm is a metaphor for just literally walk or vault over that gap over a short period of time, rather than tiptoeing, pacing it oneself across that gap. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Not quite. You
Okay.
got parts of it. But again, we're going back to actually the same thing we've already been talking about. It's not about what I'm trying to communicate to you. It's about what I want you to take from me. If I'm trying to communicate to you, it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about you. If I say cross the chasm, the optics of a statement like that to the vast majority of people are I mean, what do you think of when you think of chasm? You don't think of a quick little hop. And so when you're saying, oh, have you crossed the chasm yet? It's like this big, melodramatic sounding, huge, pseudo insurmountable task that only a select few manage. This isn't crossing a chasm. It's realizing you don't know everything. That's a pretty small step. That's okay.
Mm.
It's realizing that some of the things that maybe you took for granted might not be as right as you think. And think about the sheer number of things we can do that with in any healthcare field. And not even like any alternative healthcare field. There are still people who've performed DRES surgeries for phantom pain. That ain't cool. The evidence doesn't support that. And yet we have surgeons making a lot of money performing DRES operations when the evidence just doesn't support it. And that's in ultra right side of that curve orthopedic medicine. DRES is a dorsal root entry zone procedure. So they say, oh yeah, phantom pain, we're going to cauterize the dorsal spinal nerve root.
That's interesting. I've never heard of surgery before, and I've
really.
but I've never heard of surgery before, but I will take a look at it. Because the only treatment that I have read about are virtual reality, exercise, and a couple of other minor surgeries for the nerve.
Stuff. So yeah, you can't do that. Don't go to the evidence stuff. Don't go to your comfort zone. Go to the gross overall collective. Look at all the anachronism as well. Look at all the people who are still doing stuff from 30 years ago.
Wow.
The same people who are saying, no, your tibia has an external torsion relative to your femur, so you're going to have knee arthritis. And we have this operation to line up your tibia. We're going to cut a little wedge out, and voila, you're now better. Look at that kind of stuff. And that the evidence doesn't support that. The evidence doesn't support the dorsal root entry zone cauterization. But as far as I know, it's still done. And we have enough evidence about phantom limb pain to know that it seems to be centrally mediated. And so doing a peripheral operation doesn't do much of anything. But
that makes sense so far, yeah.
So yeah, we have that in every field, is my point. It's not just about alternative healthcare. Like that's primary healthcare right there. And we're still seeing things like that. And so in every field, we're going to run into things that just don't jive, things that don't compute with the evidence, or things that don't compute with common sense. It's not a matter of crossing the chasm, and I went from I am completely not evidence-based to I am completely evidence-based. Like, there's still stuff that I realize that I talk to patients about. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, damn, that was so far wrong. Where did I get that idea? And so instead of crossing the chasm, let's say, fine, let's start with something simple, like the Descartes model for pain. The idea being, oh, okay, if you receive mechanical trauma, you will have pain. And let's just say, okay, fine, how many people look down and see a bruise on their leg and think, oh, crap, when did that happen? I don't remember hurting myself. But you caused enough tissue trauma to release blood into the interstitial space. You caused enough tissue trauma to damage blood vessels, and potentially even nerve and muscle in with that. And you didn't feel it at the time. That's a pretty strong argument against the idea of mechanical pain model, and that's just common sense.
Yeah.
We don't have to say, here's the evidence, here's this. This paper has been cited 10,000 times, and it's a great resource. We can literally say, well, someone says, well, if I have mechanical trauma, I'm going to feel pain. We have pain receptors. I say, okay, cool. I can appreciate where you're coming from. I was taught the same in school. But let me ask you this. Have you ever had a bruise? Have you ever looked down and found a big, huge bruise and you didn't know where it came from? And the vast majority of people have run into that. And that's a complete exception to a rule that we're taught. And am I crossing the chasm by doing that? That's a pretty tiny little chasm. That's a pretty monumental little step.
Okay.
I mean, so I don't like crossing the chasm because it sounds so huge. It sounds so bombastic. When the last thing people need, again, last thing that a lot of these people need is to hear how big of a deal it is that these people are evidence-based and how, oh, this evidence-based person crossed the chasm and they're so far beyond. No, we're not. We're all idiots.
Mm-hmm.
We're all numbnuts just trying to figure out our best way to do our job as best as we can. At least I hope that's how we're idiots rather than just trying to figure out how to bilk people for money or something. But we're all just trying to figure out how to be good practitioners in our field. And for some people, it means following a more spiritual approach, and for some, it's not. But that's not to say that it's a huge deal to start applying a bit of critical thought. And maybe from there, you make another little step, like you say, okay, well, I mean, maybe this Descartes method that we were taught in school for pain, maybe this mechanistic model for pain isn't all that's cracked up to me. Maybe I'll read up on what else it could be. Oh, oops, I slipped and fell on some evidence. Okay. Well, I guess maybe that means back pain. My back pain could be caused by something else. I should read up on that. Maybe alignment's not the big thing that I thought it was too.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. So does that mean upper and lower cross syndrome aren't what I thought they were? Crap. Okay. What about trigger points? And you just kind of, pick whatever part of the rabbit hole you want to go down for how long you want to go, and just little bits and pieces, little bites.
Speaking of rabbit hole, I think I should rebrand my media company to a rabbit hole. So
That would actually be
pretty
awesome.
I think I should, but on the other hand, it probably wouldn't show up on the SEO search or anything because the keywords are pretty vital to people finding us here. But rabbit hole has been my little mantra for myself for the past, gosh, how many years has it been? 4 years since I started, kind of yeah, it's been like 4 years. 4 years of rabbit hole since early 2016. Wow, that was a eye opener for me, though. Well, thank you, Rob, for that little insight there. It was really it looks like I got more stuff to digest in the next few weeks, especially with the quarantine here. So far, I've been stuck at home for the last 48 hours. I've only went outside to check my car and also check the mail, and I've heard from some people that we should also sanitize our mail because you never know where that mail has been through the process. Um, what time is it? Okay, so let's see here. Is there any, so given your wow, hey Rob, so I'm kind of a little I'm pretty impressed with how you communicate as well as what kind of knowledge you have even from your videos too. How did you even what made you become a registered massage therapist?
Okay, what made me do it
Yeah,
was
like what influenced you?
simple.
Why
Yeah,
not
well,
why not
what I did that was kind of simple, stupid opportunity. I was an insurance agent and I hated it. And my mom pulled out this newspaper article and said, or this newspaper ad and said, "Hey, there's a school in our city that teaches massage therapy." And I remember you had talked about that when you were like, before you went to university, because I had considered going into it, and we were like, "Yeah, you can't make a living in massage therapy. You should go to university and go into commerce." And yeah, that was no bueno. I did not like that. And so
Okay.
I went to school for massage therapy and tried it out. And when I went and did the interview at the school, they were showing me around. They said, "Well, we have the massage therapy program, and we have the sports injury therapy program." And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "The sports injury program is like massage therapy, but instead of being a 2-year program, it's 3 years. And so I think it works out to like 3,300 hours or 3,000 hours or something. And you end up working as an emergency medical responder, and you end up doing a whole lot more biomechanics and a lot more advanced technique stuff." And I said, "Sweet, an extra year in school, sold." I took the combo course, the sports injury and massage therapy course. And what kept me doing it, though, is the fact that honestly, I'm pretty good at this. I like what I do. I have a lot of fun with it. I have a lot of really fun patients. And then I have my own disease that I have to navigate day to day. I found a lot of the skill sets that I dealt with, or that I picked up in school really helped contribute to me having a better quality of life with some stuff I deal with. And so now I get to call myself a functional cripple instead of just a cripple. And that's a really key difference for me. And a lot of that is hinging on the fact that because of the field I'm in, I've picked up a ton of skills to help with that. So getting into it, it was a fluke. Staying in it, that was because it fits me really well.
That is awesome, Rob. Thank you. And now in your province, in your province of Ontario, where do you think your profession is heading? Let's say in the next 10 or even the rest of the century.
I honestly think it'll split, dude. I think it's gonna be the same thing in a lot of places.
Split split like what? Like what do you mean by split? Like are there factions within the education system or the community?
Okay. Think about the idea again that we're dealing with people. This always has to come back to the fact that we're dealing with humans, and humans are flawed meat bags. Really, we are all nuts, and we all have to deal with our own obstacles to overcome when we're dealing with learning a new thing or applying a new skill or admitting we're wrong. Right? There's always that little step that's bigger, and those add up. So you want to tell people not to do ultrasound in the physiotherapy field? You're going to have some who adapt to that very quickly and say, cool. Like for me, I got rid of my ultrasound machine. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not doing ultrasound anymore. Evidence doesn't support it. Why would I have it? And I stopped using it. But for a lot of other people, they're like, no, ultrasound makes me money. I'm going to use it. And so we have this trickle, this minority of people who immediately adopt that. We have the majority who do it over time, and then we have another minority at the other side of the curve who stubbornly adhere. And we can call this educational or social inertia. That's the way I think of it, at least. If that's not a term already, then I would like to trademark that term. But we can call that educational or social inertia. And with the massage therapy field, it seems like we have a lot of people digging their heels in on one side of the curve, a lot of people digging their heels in on the other side of the curve, and instead of having a nice big arching bell curve, we have almost like a flat line in the middle. And my thoughts are that flat line is going to dip in over time, and that the field will kind of split. We'll end up with two separate factions and two separate massage fields. We'll end up with some sort of massage therapy or medical massage application to the field. So where we are, we're registered healthcare professionals, or registered healthcare practitioners, I mean. And so massage therapists in Ontario spend at least 2,000 hours in their program, typically. Mine was 3,000. And with my program, we had to do another 750 hours of field time working as emergency medical responder. I think I put in like 1,200 extra hours. It ended up being just a lot, but it was kind of fun to snuck up on you. And so we have this thing that on paper looks really great. Like, oh, wow, we do 2,000 plus hours of schooling. But a lot of that schooling still includes old anachronistic thought processes like trigger points, like cross syndromes, like alignment.
Speaking of cross syndromes, I just saw last night I saw a post by our friend Kanan Hollingsworth that he was taking an online course currently, yeah. And he was really like infuriated with the lower cross syndrome screenshot that he shared, and I was like, wow, that looks like.
I never want to see an angry Keenan, because I feel like an angry Keenan could hit me with a car, not by driving it, but by swinging it like a baseball bat.
Have you ate with the guy? Have you dined with him?
Did we eat together? I can't remember. I think we did.
Oh my gosh, I felt like he is not the person that I expected when I first met him, and he is like a gentle giant. He's a big dude, but you know what though? But he's just enjoyed his food a lot, and I was surprised that how little he actually ate. So, hey, Keenan, if you're listening to this, please, we're doing this in good humor, not to mock you or anything. We're just having a little fun here, but it's pretty cool actually.
Yeah, But no, I don't remember if he and I actually got to sit down to a meal together. But
Hmm.
he's like this big happy dude, and those guys are the scariest when they get mad because it takes so long to get them there. But then when they do, like, Keenan could just pick up a car and throw it. And
Kanan picking up a car and throw.
not like maybe not like a Volvo or something, but maybe like a LAKEY. If you've ever seen a LAKEY, those things are pretty light. He could probably do.
Oh my gosh.
You better not edit this out. That laugh is amazing.
Woo! No, hey, by the way, sorry, got sidetracked a little bit. Uh, going back to the lower cross syndrome thing, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um,
Outdated ideas.
we still teach that. That's still taught by a lot of professionals, a lot of teachers, a lot of instructors are still teaching stuff that they were taught. And because they haven't necessarily been exposed to the fact that that's not accurate, or they haven't updated their model, they haven't looked into it themselves. Maybe, who knows? Any reason or any many others I haven't considered. They still teach that as well. They still say, here's a thing you should look into outside of your notes, or they include it in their notes. And so we have this educational inertia. And the massage therapy profession has a lot more acceptance of pseudoscience than a lot of other professions. But we also have a good chunk of massage therapists who are like, well, like for me, I've been hurt by being treated by pseudoscience therapists a number of times. Like since I was a teenager, I've dealt with
Really?
pseudoscience professionals. Yeah, chiropractors especially. So they tend to have left a bad taste in my mouth because I've had the most exposure to them and the most harm from them.
Hmm.
And so I have a real sore spot when it comes to accepting false claims.
Hmm.
So you'll have a lot of people like me in the field who are like, no, that is wrong. I will tell you that is wrong. End of story. And again, I mean, going back, that's not exactly the best way to get results, and you're trying to help push things forward. And so we have one part of the field that's trying desperately to move forward, and it's getting more frustrated and trying to drag people with them. You have another
Hmm.
part of the field at the other side that's trying desperately to stay in their comfort zone and is getting more frustrated and trying to stay where they are. And you have people in
Wow.
between who are trying to capitalize on that here and there. People who are saying, here, this is my frozen shoulder course, and I can treat frozen shoulder in one treatment. And they have a formulaic approach where they have a video and they say, yes, I see you. I validate you. Now let me show you my way and observe the miraculous treatment approach. And everyone in this room can do exactly what I did. You all have that knowledge intrinsically, and you don't need any other special courses. But you can take my course, and I'll teach you to unlock it. And they're appealing to that pseudo spirituality, that kind of false narrative of education, and making a killing on it. And so you have a bunch of people in the middle who kind of know both sides of it and pick one and they capitalize on it. And eventually things, in my mind, are probably going to split in half. We'll see two separate fields of massage therapy. We'll see one that's licensed and or registered. So we call them registered here in Canada. And registered with our governing health bodies. So with regulated health, uh, registered healthcare professionals. Wow. Oops. With the RHCA, and they're going to be your right side of that equation, and the left side of that equation will be uh, more kind of energy healing work, but they'll still be calling themselves massage therapists or something. And I imagine we'll see that split. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know the logistics of it. I don't know the legality of it or the terminology, but I imagine we'll see a big bifurcation.
It sounds a lot like
Uh,
what's going. It sounds like what's going on in the U.S. as well. From a lot of discussions I've read in the past few years, that here in the U.S. we are likely to have a split sometime this century. We just don't know when.
mm-hmm.
And it sounds like when you say there are two camps, you have one camp that wants to be more progressive. They want to move on from the pseudoscience and outdated ideas. And they have a second camp who likes to dig their heels in and stay rooted to where they are. That
Well,
sounds,
two
does that sound a lot,
yeah.
does that sound a lot like politics in the US and Canada to you?
Well, I mean, yeah. Now we get into okay. So now we get into like neuroscience and stuff. We get into theories on the neuroscience and the neuroanatomy of human behavior and different approaches to like amygdala response and tribalism, and we see a lot of um, similar representation in both politics and professionalism. And so the root cause of that is often referred to as being neuroscience in nature, and we can see these traits leading to this behavior on average.
Hmm.
I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, you start seeing that same kind of pattern in each
Okay.
locale.
Have you read any of the books by Dr. Robert Sapolsky regarding that behavior in regarding the how the amygdala activates in correspondence with other parts of the brain that triggers anger and denial?
Um, I haven't. I've done some reading on the James Lang theory of emotion,
Okay.
and I've listened to some of Sapolsky's stuff. I'm not much of a reader, actually. I
Hmm.
uh, I have a pretty loud brain that tends to really scream its anxiety at me, and so having time for quiet reading doesn't really go well for me. I can't
Hmm.
really enjoy reading the same way I used to, say, 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I watch a lot more videos and engage in a lot more electronic media.
Okay. You have different ways to learn. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob, we're kind of running out of time here. I just want to wrap this up really quick. But one thing I wanted to ask you about you is so far, how are you doing over with this whole quarantine thing? How is your neighborhood doing?
Um, my neighborhood. Do you mean like my other colleagues or my
Oh, no,
my?
just you, just you, and I mean, don't you live in like near Hamilton?
I do, yeah. So we are we are being encouraged to socially isolate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have mostly closed down the door for my clinic. I'm still seeing. I haven't seen anyone yet, but I still have the option to see anyone who has a major injury or anyone who has an accident wants to get ruled out. So rather than someone spraining an ankle and saying, "Oh crap, do I have to go to the ER?" Okay, we can do a video conference, or I can see you in the office if we need to, and
Mm-hmm.
let's rule out red flags. If we can't, then yes, you need to go to the ER. But if not, then no, save the ER space. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So right now, my practice is running ultra skeleton. I tend to see maybe between 2 and 4 emergency patients a month, where someone say dislocates a shoulder or experiences a pop or ruptures a pulley in their hand or something like that. Like those are some recent examples I've seen. And so those ones I'll still make space for. And if we can't figure out video, we see them in person. But otherwise I'm basically in self quarantine mode and chilling out at home and relaxing
Mm-hmm.
and talking to you and studying and hopefully going for a hike or something soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Rob. Hey, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully, a lot of the stuff you talked about already, I took some notes on paper already just to, recap some of the show notes and also, and this is something new to digest for the next couple of weeks, maybe even for the rest of my life. Who knows?
Well, if you ever want to hang out and chat on that, I'm game. And
Awesome, man.
if you want, we can have a total geek out movie session or something and chit chat.
Well, I'm watching The Mandalorian right now. I just finished.
Oh, that's so good.
Shh, don't tell anymore because some people have already told me some spoilers or like spoiler like kind of comments,
I'm
and I don't
very
want
anti.
any more than that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
just
just finished episode one, and I loved it already. It's better than freaking Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, that movie sucked. I
I haven't
fell
seen.
asleep. If you want to see it, I mean, it's optional. but you also want,
Yeah.
but is I mean, it does feel kind of complete that you've watched all 9 Star Wars, canon films, but
Yeah.
there's something really missing with the Rise of Skywalker, which where the other films did not have. Even I kind of wish Jar Jar Binks would even be back for that for the last movie. It was that bad. I'm sorry, it was that bad. It maybe is good for 12-year-olds, but
Mhm.
not for some of us who's been with the whole saga since the beginning in the 70s. So
Yeah, like the what's it called? I can't remember what the eighth film was called. I watched it and I walked away. I was like, wow,
the
that
la-
was absolutely terrible.
the Last Jedi.
And yeah, I was so unimpressed with it, so I just kind of walked away. I wish they'd taken the Grand Admiral Thrawn series from the novels and made the movies into that. That would have been
Yeah, they
he
should have
was
done that.
awesome.
But yeah,
He was,
that one was a lot darker. This is a more like happy, happy hand holding, Disney like kind of thing. Bambi and his mother. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Bambi's
It's
mother died.
I know exactly. That's the whole point. There is none of that in the. Ever since Disney took over
Oh, okay.
LucasArts, it's different. It's like some of the
Okay.
cinematography was great, and I was expecting a huge battle at the end of Rise of Skywalker because that what was 1,000 Resistance fleet coming in against the new Empire Armada. I thought to be like a 10 minutes of dogfights. Okay, 10 minutes of dog, just like Return of the Jedi, but it wasn't none.
Oh,
Yeah, there's nothing
I'm sorry.
memorable. Yeah, nothing memorable about the film. So
Well, either
anyway,
way, enjoy the Mandalorian. It is wonderful. My
I love.
roommate and I sat down, had a hangout and nerd session on it, and it was quite thoroughly enjoyable. We were both quite impressed.
Gosh. Awesome,
And yeah,
awesome.
Nick, thanks for making time like this. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no, no, thank you, Rob. Thank you for taking the time for this too. So we're going to talk later, and hopefully we'll hear more from you soon.
I look forward to it. You have yourself a great day, and good luck with your self-imposed exile.
You can follow Rob Haddow on Facebook under Haddow Massage Therapy. That's HADDOW. He has a lot of videos on exercises for various symptoms, and please check him out. For those of you who are following the coronavirus updates, there is a website that you can keep track of how many cases, how many have recovered, and how many deaths there are in each country. You can go to worldometers.info. That's WORLDOMETERS.info/coronavirus. And that is it for the show, and hopefully I'll be able to do more of these interviews with different practitioners and also other people. And I hope to get in touch with a few physicians and scientists regarding not just about our current pandemic situation, but also looking at economics, looking at history, philosophy, as well as other things relating to manual therapy practice and how we can cope with this. And don't forget to check us out on our website at massagefitnessmag.com. We have a few new stories coming out this month, and we'll let you know as soon as possible on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. stay safe, and see you next time.